In this video, I'm going to be talking about Robert Morrison. And at the end of the video, I'm going to go over some steps that parents can take if they find themselves in a situation like Cindy's parents found themselves. I'm also want to start off by reading What is a Predator to make sure that we're on the same page as we go through this video. A human predator is a person who tries to take advantage of someone who is weak and or having a vulnerable moment. They prey on others' frailties, whether it's a small child or an intoxicated person or a woman in a dark parking lot. Most predators are people with low self-esteem and psychopathic tendencies who feel the need to control others to assure themselves of their own importance in the world. They are calculous and lack remorse for the offense behavior manifested by their disordered character. Psychopathics are highly pleasure driven and quite often operates within the reward system of the brain when interacting with those that can be identified as their target.
You get them alone.
Grooming. I would check out their family situation. I would check out their clothing to see how well they were, financially. I would check out their social interaction with other kids. When we were on the ballparks or on the gym floor, I would make sure which ones I wanted to molest. I would give them special attention, congratulate them, talk to them when I know that I would never be allowed to talk to anybody else. Aside from everybody, I would give them the attention that an official is not supposed to give anybody. And it made them feel like, wow, he's paying me attention. It is a direct form of grooming.
Were there certain characteristics that you looked for in children before molesting them?
In children, yes, but more I also looked at their families. If I thought the father was a threat, I would not approach the child. If I thought that the child had friends that he would tell, I would not approach him. If I thought the child had friends that were in the same capacity he was, I would approach him. For the simple fact that if I could molest him, I could lure him into grooming him into believing that he would enjoy it. And therefore, I could manipulate him into having his other friends come and be molested by me as well.
So perhaps a child that doesn't really have a whole lot of friends, maybe not really a strong family, things like that.
Yes, no spiritual values, weak in education, needs help in many ways, even from split parenting, has a mother who may be having problems with the family, well, here comes superhero in to help out, wow, well, thank you very much. No problem. You ever need me to take him away for the night so you can have a night out? No problem. It works.
I learned to lie and manipulate because I also had rejection. I didn't want to be rejected. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible. And I learned how to spot this in girls. Please hear me. There's a reason I'm sharing this. The very thing, ladies, that the world tells you to give a man before marriage so that you can keep him is the very thing that will cause you to lose him. I looked for girls that did not have a good relationship with their father. I learned to spot that. I looked for girls that were insecure. And I don't know, now I look back on this, I can tell I did it. It wasn't like a plan that I had, but I could spot this. Girls were made to be held by men. And if they are not held, if that need is not met in a healthy way by their father, they will meet it in an unhealthy way. But you need to understand that if a man does not respect you, he cannot love you.
As you can see in those two videos that you just watched, the first person is Jack Reynolds. The second video was of Robert Morrison. Both men use the same tactics when it comes to stalking, finding victims, and preying on the victims. They also use the same tactics when it comes to looking at the family, overall family, to see what type of family the child is brought up in, so it can be easier for them. So they not only are preying on the children themselves, they are also preying on the family. They're stalking the family to see, do I have anything to worry about when it comes to the household dynamic? Is it going to be easy for me to manipulate and take advantage of this child? Both men did the same thing. So there's no difference between Robert Morrison and Jack Reynolds, other than Robert Morrison did not go to jail for his act, but Jack Reynolds did. Both men are predators, and we see in the Bible when it comes to 1 Peter 5:8 ESV, be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. So you have to understand, this isn't a one-off. Robert Morrison is trying to make it sound like it's a one-off. If he was comfortable enough to do this in this child's house, this is not the first time. And he also stated that he did it multiple times. So multiple times, we don't know how many as far as being minors. That's the only thing that is not clear.
Wife or friends of her parents who would often stay over. And the abuse, she says, continued for 4.5 years.
He said, you can never tell anyone because it will ruin everything.
Morris admits to what he describes as inappropriate sexual behavior with a young lady for several years in his 20s.
A young lady? I was not a young lady. I was a little girl. I was 12.
What Pastor Robert Morris of Gateway Church has to say about Christians having demons.
So can a Christian be under the influence of a demonic spirit? Absolutely.
Take a look at this picture of Cindy Clemmershire at the age of 12. This is who we are talking about. She says that Morris's accounts of what happened suggest she was older than she was and that he was younger. In a sermon Morris gave 10 years ago, you can hear him discuss his sexual immorality as a teen.
I learned to lie and manipulate. Because I also had rejection, I didn't want to be rejected. So I looked for the girls that would be the most susceptible. And I learned how to spot this in girls.
At the time of Clemmershire's alleged abuse, Morris was in his 20s and already married. Clemmershire says that for many years she felt responsible and embarrassed. With age, she says, she's learned better and gained the courage to speak out.
Has my mindset shifted? Yes. I'm not to blame. I shouldn't have shame on me. I don't live in shame anymore.
For decades, churches have ignored her disclosures while embracing, promoting, and endorsing this reported sexual offender as a man of God.
According to Cindy, the elders in the church knew what type of man Robert Morrison was, and they overlooked it. She made sure she let them know that she was a minor at the time the incident started. They did not care that Robert Morrison was a child mo. They did not care of the things that he did. The only thing they wanted to do was put him back into the pulpit. So yes, they did set him aside for a while, but they let him back in church. That is something that should have never happened. What Robert Morrison did was not a fall. It was not a stumble. It was a crime. He not only committed a crime against a child, he also committed a crime against God. So those two things have to be taken into account when the church themselves say, okay, what do we need to do to rectify this situation? They should have said, we need to call the authorities because what you did to this child was against the law. But they did not do that. And by letting him back in the church, this is another thing you have to think about. When a woman comes to him or is brought to his attention or other people in the church, because now he's the leader, his mindset, his view of things are going to be a trickle-down effect. Everything starts with the leader. So everything is going to trickle down to the rest of the people that's under him, to the congregation itself. So if someone brings up, hey, my child is being SA by someone, or my husband or my friend did this to my child, what advice do you think Robert Morrison is going to give? Do you think he's going to say, oh, call the police? He's going to think about the things he has done to other kids. He's going to say, well, what we need to do is just put him into counseling. What we need to do is give him therapy. They're not going to look for justice for the child. They're going to try to protect the man. And then if a woman come and say, I think I want to call the authorities, they're going to try to talk her against that. So that's why it's dangerous, and was dangerous, to put him back in that position, knowing that he's a predator and knowing that he's a child mo. I'm going to show you another video. And in this video, I want you to listen carefully to the term Davo effect and understand what that really means.
Mega churches are large organizations with a key charismatic leader. Whatever's not finished in his or her soul, then is broadcast throughout the structures and processes of that organization. And that being the case, one of the elements of that is giving them that special standard that says, because you're the special leader, even if you mess some things up, we're going to protect you. You know, there's one of the things I really wanted to shine a light on is that once you start to put your feet in that advocacy world, you'll hear a term called Darvo. And Darvo is this kind of weird dynamic that happens, I would say, consistently. I almost want to say almost consistently, but I think consistently happens. And it stands for deny, accuse, and reverse the victim and offender. DARVO, deny. Those allegations aren't true. Accuse, the accuser is the bad guy. Now I'm going to reverse and make the victim the bad guy and the offender the good guy. And that dynamic is, I'll just say, that's something that's in the world and not just in the church. You know, that's something that you see in any relationship or structure where abuse takes place, and because one of the elements of abuse is always a power differential. The one person who's the abusive person has power over the abuse victim or victims. And that position of power allows them to dictate not only what happens, but also the narrative that takes place around what happens. And so when the narrative is controlled by the abuser and or those who are supporting and defending the abuser, they deny what happened. That's not really what happened. They accuse the victim. Really what happened is they were the one who caused the abuse. They were the ones who, you know, and remember what I said a minute ago, the misassignment of responsibility causes the abuse victim to believe that they're responsible. And this reversing victim and offender or accusing the victim is a part of that and plays into that, so that now what happens next is the public believes the abuser's perspective and begins to hone in on the victim as the wrong person and the perpetrator of abuse as the one who should be protected and defended. And you've completed the deny, attack, and reverse the victim with the offender and the offender with the victim. And it's one of the reasons why we in the culture and ultimately we in the church haven't been able to solve the issue of abuse, because people don't recognize it when it's right in front of their eyes. They think some poor person is being blamed for something that's not really their fault, when in reality, they've done harm and are getting away with it because people circle wagons and protect them. And so that special status of the religious leader that says, spiritually and socially, I'm a notch to 10 notches above, and so I should be given special privilege, special protection. I should be given this position of specialness that says, even if I hurt people, I've helped more than I've hurt. So protect me while I continue to hurt and help people.
In that video, you can see Bob Harper explain the Davo effect. This is something that we have seen play out countless times throughout the years. The most recent is with the situation with Cassie and P. Diddy. Everyone rallied around P. Diddy, but they blamed Cassie for everything that happened to her. They even, started saying she's only saying this because she wants his money. They never really looked at the situation for what it truly was and say, okay, this man has a reputation of going around hurting people, so it can be some validity to what she is saying. they automatically took his side over hers, even though facts are in front of them showing that he isn't a great guy. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that only men can be predators. Women can also be predators. And women can also be narcissistic to the point that they are causing situations where they're blaming men for certain things that's not really happening because they want all the attention focused on them, because they want to go around and lie. It's two sides to every story. And not every story is going to go, the man is the predator. Sometimes it's the woman, and sometimes the man is actually the victim. So we need to just be open-minded, open our eyes, open our ears, and open our hearts to when people say things. And always try to be open-minded when you're looking at both sides of the situation. Don't automatically take this person's side over that person. Look at the whole picture. And that's what we don't do a lot of time, especially when it comes to men with money. We have a way of putting them on a pedestal. We have a way of making them more important than they really are. The only person that we need to be putting up high and worshiping is God. We should never worship man. I have a Bible scripture, Luke 4:8 ESV, and Jesus answered him, "It is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve." So there's no pastor, preacher, bishop, or anything that's higher than you. Never think that people that's walking around, regardless of how much money they have, if they're not willing to show you respect, if they don't respect your kids, if they don't respect themselves, why would you give them all this authority over you? Why would you give them all this unnecessary and unrealistic respect that they don't deserve? If they're not willing to treat you like a human, then you need to get away from them. You need to separate yourself from them. As soon as you see people on a power trip, that should let you know they are selfish. They don't care about anyone else but themselves and the people that's in their circle. They just want to uplift them and in the process hold you down. So never tell your kids just because this person, teach your kids to respect other people and things like that, but never be submissive to people unless they are their parents, loving parents. Make sure that, they understand the difference between respecting a person because of their position or submitting to that person because of their position. It's very important that kids understand the difference. So what I want to do now is go over 6 things that parents can do if they find themselves in a situation like Cindy's parents. The first thing and the most important thing is to build a relationship with your kids. Before anything happens to them, build a relationship with them that they're confident in you as a parent, that if they do come to you and tell you someone touched them, that you're going to do something about it. They need to be able to come to you and talk to you about anything, even if it's something that you as a parent don't feel comfortable listening to or having that conversation with your child. You need to be open with them enough so they can feel comfortable coming to you with any questions they may have, with any situation they may have seen going on with someone else, or because you're not going to be with them all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you need to have that open relationship that they can come talk to you about anything that happened to them outside of your presence. And then you also need to learn to build confidence in your kids, help them build confidence in themselves. You can do that by enrolling them into some type of sports so they can feel good and, achieve things. Also put them in a class where they're going to learn how to defend themselves. Because even not necessarily a predator, but sometimes kids don't have confidence and they're easily bullied. But if they have confidence that they know, okay, if something happened to me, I know what to do. I can defend myself and get away from the danger. That will also build confidence in them because they're going to walk around with their head held high. They're not going to be looking down on the ground. They're not going to be looking timid. They're going to be able to hold their heads up high because they have that confidence that if someone put me in a situation, I know how to get out of it. I know how to run. I know what to do. Always teach your kids what to do. If someone's calling them, say, hey, come here. don't go. Even if it's an adult, if it's an adult they don't know, don't go. Or if they say, oh, I need help with this, or an adult should never go to a child asking them any questions or asking them for help. As a child, you need to teach them, hey, you need to find I'm a child, you need to find an adult to talk to. Don't, you should be asking me this, I don't know. You as an adult should, a lot of times kids are afraid to say no to an adult. And it's important that we teach kids that it's okay to say no to adults, especially when they're in a situation where they don't feel safe. So if an adult comes in and say, hey, do you know where this is? Or hey, can you help me find this? I'm sorry, but I'm a child. You should find an adult to ask that question. And that would give them confidence in knowing what to do, because sometimes kids don't know how to respond to certain situations or certain questions because it was never taught to them. So that information needs to be instilled in your kids so they can have confidence when they do go out in the world without you, or they're just out with other friends. They need to have a confidence of knowing what to do when they find themselves in situations that they don't feel comfortable. And self-defense is one thing that will help them with that, sports and stuff like that, to help them build their confidence. And then the second thing is to teach your child that if someone touches them that's inappropriate, first you got to teach them what's appropriate and inappropriate when it comes to touching. And inappropriate is anything that makes them feel uncomfortable. And then especially if an adult say to them, hey, don't tell, this is our secret. If you tell, you're going to get in trouble. If you tell, everyone's going to be mad at you. You need to teach your child, no. If you tell me anything, I'm not going to be mad at you. I might, I need to find out what's going on so I can know how to handle that situation. But if someone's telling you not to tell me, make sure you tell me, because you should not be keeping any secret of an adult. I am your parent, and we should have open and trustful communication. So you need to tell me, because my job as your parent is to keep you safe. And there should be no secret between you and some other adult. So make sure you come to me and let me know what's going on, especially if they're touching you, especially if they're touching a friend of yours, especially if you see them touching someone else that in a way they should not be touching them. Make sure you come tell me so I can go ahead and protect you and make sure nothing happened to you. Always let the child know they're not in the wrong for coming to you, telling you this information. And then number 3, always reassure your child that they're not at fault. When an adult is doing something to them, when an adult is hurting them, reassure your child that they are not at fault. It's the adult that's at fault. It's the adult that was wrong because they know better. Never make your child feel like they did something wrong, because that is something they would carry with them, the guilt, the shame, and everything like that. So you don't want to put your child in this that situation. And number 4, if you do find out that your child has been SA, the first thing you need to do is take your child to the hospital, to a doctor, so they can be checked out to make sure they're okay, because you don't know if there's any damage, if the person who SA'd them had some type of sexual disease or anything like that. So you always want to think of the safety and protecting your child, so you want to take them to the doctor first. Unlike Cindy parents, and I'm not blaming them or anything like that, but the first thing they did when they find out, they went to the church elders. Don't do that. Do not involve the church elders, involve the law, because what the person did to your child is criminal. Think of the safety of your child, take them to the hospital, make sure it's okay. While they're in the hospital, you're going to explain to the doctor everything that your child told you, and that's when the police is going to get involved. That is who is going to talk to the person who victimized your child. It's not your responsibility to go to them and ask them, why did you do this and all that. Let the police deal with that. Your responsibility is your child. You deal with your child. And then also, by telling the doctor, by telling the authority, that allows you to deal with the mental of your child by getting them into some type of counseling or therapy, because they don't fully understand what happened to them. They know they don't like it. They know they're confused. They're, this person is telling them all this stuff is going to happen if they speak up. So to help your child deal with that, because you got to understand, they only have a limited amount of life experience. They don't have the life experience that you may have or someone else may have. Their life experience is very limited, and their life experience is very cool and very, it's just based on what you as a parent has been teaching them, and maybe some other people outside of your household, like teachers and different things like that. So they really don't have the full understanding of what just happened to them. So by taking them into counseling, that helps them deal with any anxiety they may be feeling because of that. That might help them deal with any depressions they may be feeling, any trauma. That will help them with that. And like I said, it's very important that parents understand your job, your responsibility is to make sure your child is okay. Don't worry about the predator. Don't worry about everyone else and how they're going to be thinking and how they're going to be feeling, because that goes back to the Darvo effect. If these people is going to somehow blame a child for what a grown adult did, then you really don't want to associate with those people. And that's another thing that we have to do as parents or as adults, is stop feeling like we have to be friends or friendly or in a situation with everyone, and we don't want to lose friends. We don't want to lose that connection. If that connection is disrespectful to you or anyone in your family, you don't want to be around it. If that connection is not a righteous person, a person that you can trust, why would you still want to be around that person? They're showing you who they are. When they show you who they are, believe it. Just like Robert Morrison said in that video when they said, can a Christian have a demon? Not that they have a demon actually in them. They're allowing a demon to work through them. They're allowing a demon to use them. So if you see some demonic things going on, like SA and all this other stuff that's be going on in churches, and not just churches, but the world in general, you need to separate yourself from that. Why would you want to hang around demonic spirits? Especially if you're saying you're a Christian, why would you want to associate with the demonic people and people who's okay with things happening on a demonic level? So don't worry about going to church elders, or don't worry about how the church is going to feel, or don't worry about all that. Just take care of your child and make sure your child is okay. And then, and that was like 4 and 5. And then number 6, this relates to both men and women. Please remember, if you don't remember anything else, please remember this. Both Robert Morrison and Jack Reynolds stated that they look to see if there's a father in the household. They look to see if the father is any type of threat. And if the father is not in the household, or if they are in the household and they feel that the father is not a threat, they're going to take advantage of your child, because that's their predator nature. And you can see with Robert Morrison, when he initially started SN Cindy, he did it in the household with the mother and father there. So that lets you know he was cunning. That lets you know this wasn't his first time doing this to a child, that he felt comfortable enough to violate her in her house with her mother and father there. So he had no fear of the father. And so as fathers, you have to stand up for both your daughters as well as your son. Neither one of them said they felt threatened by the mother. Neither one of them cared about the mother or how the mother thought or what the mother would say or do. They feared the father. And that lets you know this is why society do not want strong men. This is why society talks against male masculinity, being a strong man, being a man, period. This is why they don't want that, because once you get rid of the man, it's easy to roll over the women and get what they want, to take advantage of your kids, to have the women subservient. They know that once the man is out of the picture, there's no, because I believe in having a nuclear household, a mother and a father. I believe in the tradition of a household based on what the Bible say. The man being the head of the household. And being the head of the household, that means that you have to be a strong man. That means that you have to be a leader. That means that you have to understand your position when it comes to protecting your family. And a lot of men don't take that position. And even if you're not in the household, you should still be a man when it comes to your kids, to the point that they say, well, no, I'm not going to mess with this child because I know who his father is and I know what his father will do to me. And so we have 1 Corinthians 16:13 ESV. Be watchful, stand firm in faith, act like men, be strong.